The second part of our tagline is simplicity. Now, this idea of simplicity is a rather new one. It's a watered-down version of the old Brethren notion of nonconformity, which was much broader, which attempted to set us apart from the rest of society. To say that we are in the world but not of the world. To say that we focus on those things which are spiritual and not those things which are material. Back in the days of nonconformity, it involved plain dress, the holy kiss, the rejection of Sunday school. That was a key point back then. Not voting, so we probably wouldn't have watched the State of the Union because we had no interest in such affairs, and so forth. That was our tradition of nonconformity that has been adapted to be called simplicity. But when we look at our lives, when we look around this room, if I put most of you in a lineup with any number of other people from other faith traditions, we would struggle to point out the brethren person from the rest of the world. Our cars, our homes, our occupations place us much closer to mainstream America than they do to our nonconformity roots. Lastly, our tagline touts together. This word conjures up images of holding hands in community and unity. Yet we struggle in both individual congregations and in our denomination to agree on common beliefs. Our annual meeting has become a dysfunctional house divided, where careful plans are hatched in the business sessions to hold the microphone, to be able to dominate discussion on a topic. Or it's an exercise in this group is excluded from having booth space in the exhibit hall. Carl Bowman characterizes things this way. 100 years ago, Elder D.L. Miller proclaimed that there is rarely found so large a body of religious people so closely united on the doctrines and principles to which they hold. Today, there is rarely found so small a body so diverse. We would like to believe we are living with D.L. Miller in the late 1800s, but it is simply not the case. So where do we go from here? If our denominational tagline may or may not accurately characterize our beliefs, perhaps we need to go back further. This denomination began in 1708 because 8 courageous people had the courage not simply to accept the faith and the beliefs of the previous generation, but to dig and search for their own way. They boldly baptized one another in the Ader River, a symbolic act intended to affirm their strict commitment to Christ's teachings in the New Testament. In their minds, the way of the Christian and the way of the church was to follow the example and teachings of Jesus. And they covenanted with one another to form a congregation of committed believers. Now, the original 8 were reluctant to give themselves a name. But they were a group, and so others decided to name them instead. People in Europe began to call them the New Baptists, or the Schwarzenau Baptists. In 1836, the group became tired of other groups naming them, and so they said, we're going to name ourselves the Fraternity of German Baptists. Then in 1871, the name was changed to the German Baptist Brethren. However, through much of this time, the group was simply known as the Dunkers or Dunkards for their baptismal practices. Finally, in 1908, the group took the modern-day name Church of the Brethren. This name, Brethren, elicits passions on both sides. Carl Bowman, in this book, Brethren Society, and he's a sociologist, but a very good sociologist and historian. He writes, quote, unlike the Amish, the Mennonites, and the Quakers, whose names conjure up some image in the public mind, the term Brethren conjures up only a question. What is that? Some kind of Catholic order? A fundamentalist sect? Brethren typically respond, well, we're sort of like the Mennonites, but more open. Or alternately, we're one of the historic peace churches. Others say we're a small mainline denomination that accepts all Christians regardless of creed or doctrine. Prodded for further clarification, some relish the chance to tell the Brethren's story, and some wish they could, but know little of it. But others feel only awkwardness and embarrassment at the lack of public recognition. End quote from Bowman. Martin Marty professor at the University of Chicago, wrote the foreword to that book, Church of the Brethren, Yesterday and Today. And he wrote, "Each generation must decide what is worth saving, what is worth restoring, what can be lightly left behind, and what might need faced with courage." The Church of the Brethren tradition is much richer, more diverse, more pluralist than its traditionalists or the nostalgic-minded will let it be. End quote from Marty.